Okay, thanks again everyone for taking the time to join us today for this introduction to Amazon QuickSight. My name is Quentin Alsbury. I'm a product manager with the QuickSight team, and joining me is Jesse Gebhardt, who's a business development manager with QuickSight as well. Today's session is going to cover an overview of what QuickSight is, how it fits into the overall AWS ecosystem and product portfolio, and then Jesse's going to give us an actual demo and walk us through how QuickSight works and how you can use it to create dashboards and analysis and dive in and do discovery inside of your data. And then we'll finish off with some notes on how you can use QuickSight and talk a little bit about our new pay-per session pricing model that we just announced about a month ago. So first off, we'd like to talk a little bit about what QuickSight is and why AWS has built a BI tool. So the way that we talk about QuickSight is that it's a fully managed and serverless business intelligence system. And what do we mean by fully managed? Well, it's completely hosted in the cloud, meaning there's no infrastructure for you to ever deploy or manage. It's literally a plug and play solution where you just sign up for an account and you can start using it. So when we look at where QuickSight fits into the complete AWS analytics stack, what you can see is a clear picture of a wide variety of solutions that you can string together dependent on whatever use case you're trying to solve to provide a end-to-end business intelligence solution that takes your data from its collection, from where it's coming from, all the different sources, being able to store that in a variety of ways, transform it, process it, and then make it available for consumption by your end users. And so what QuickSight really allows now is for you to take that data throughout its entire life cycle to the endpoint where you're putting it into the hands of end users as dashboards or reports to help them derive insights out of that, and do that all with a deeply integrated stack of solutions that are all available through AWS and all available as hosted solutions with really nothing for you to manage. So you can truly construct a end-to-end serverless BI solution in the cloud with AWS solutions. So what are some of the highlights of how QuickSight works? So again, because it is a hosted solution, QuickSight is pretty much infinitely scalable, meaning as you add users onto the solution, as your workloads increase, as users become more and more active, QuickSight automatically scales with you without you really having to do anything, which is very different than a lot of traditional business intelligence solutions where they're either hosted by you or you're hosting them in a third-party cloud, etc. And you're kind of responsible for managing the load on your infrastructure as you increase the number of users, as users increase the amount of activity that they're engaging with a solution on, as well as the data sets and the amount of data that you're exposing through the solution increase. So QuickSight, as a completely hosted solution, has all that scalability built into it, and it just grows with you as you need it to, without really you having to do anything. The next is that it's completely managed by us, meaning there is nothing that you have to do to run your QuickSight deployment, whether that's for 10 users or whether that's for 50,000 users. There is no management of the QuickSight system. You basically just create your account and then create your content, connect to your data sources, and admin your users. But when it comes to the infrastructure side of things, there's really nothing for you to manage. It's a completely hosted and fully managed solution. Next is QuickSight allows you to only pay for what you use. So this is a very big departure from the way that BI systems are traditionally licensed, where users or you're asked to prepay for your users either on a one-time license or on an ongoing subscription, where you're basically paying for every user on a month-to-month basis, regardless of how frequently they use the solution or don't use the solution. So with QuickSight, that's no longer true. So your users really only pay for what they use. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later when we get to the pricing section of the webinar. And then lastly, as an AWS solution, QuickSight is deeply integrated with all of the different AWS solutions that are relevant for doing a full end-to-end cloud BI solution. So whether it's data sources like Redshift or S3 or RDS, as well as other administrative tools like like IAM and CloudTrail for auditing and monitoring. QuickSight's deeply integrated with all of the relevant AWS services so that you can really build a native AWS end-to-end BI solution in the cloud. So the first thing we like to talk about with QuickSight is how it connects to your data. So again, as we just talked about, QuickSight's deeply integrated with all of the relevant AWS data sources. So things like Redshift, RDS, S3, Aurora, but it also allows you to connect to third-party databases, both whether those databases are hosted inside of AWS on EC2, or if you're running them on premise. QuickSight also allows you to connect to your on-premise data sources in a secure way that allow you to use QuickSight in the cloud for your BI, but you can still have that data on premise. In addition to that, we also allow you to connect to third-party applications like Salesforce, Jira, ServiceNow, Twitter, that allow you to connect to those data sources and create dashboards and reports directly off of those without bringing that data into any third-party or interstitial data warehouse. You just go directly from the source. So this is the list of data sources that we support today. We're constantly adding new ones. So this list will continue to expand both in terms of the number of databases and other sources, as well as third-party applications that we continue to add as well. Another thing that we like to highlight about QuickSight is that as a hosted application, it really offers you one product for all your users. So inside of most organizations, there's different types of users for different types of analytics applications, starting with the power user data analysts who like to just get in, get access to data, and do their own self-service BI where they can create their own charts and tables and kind of dig around and do their own hands-on analysis inside of the data. And then you have the more classic data publishing model where you have a BI team or power users and analysts that are creating reports and dashboards and then distributing that out to an audience of users that are just going to interact with that predefined content and maybe do some drilling and some filtering on that, but more or less consuming data and reports that I've put together for them. So in a lot of other solutions, those different scenarios are split across multiple different applications. Where there'll be a desktop application for the self-serve discovery users, or a different application for creating dashboards and reports, and then a hosting solution or a different methodology for posting those dashboards to be consumed, or even distributing those as PDFs or some other format. QuickSight really brings all of those things together into one singular application for you to manage across your company, and you essentially give different users the permissions they need to use different features of the application. So if you're a power user, you give them the ability to go in and create their own analyses and connect to data and build charts, etc. If they're more of just a pure consumer, then you give them the ability to just interact with reports and dashboards that have been created and shared with them. So QuickSight really brings all that together in one singular solution, makes it a lot easier to manage and a lot more streamlined across your organization. So when we talk about creating and publishing interactive dashboards and reports, what QuickSight really allows you to do is create these reports and dashboards that allow your users to not just look at the data in a static, frozen way, but they can actually interact with the data. They can scrub on charts and click and drill into the next level. They can add their own filters and really curate the view that they need for themselves, and interact with the data and explore it in a way while it's still interacting with a published piece of content that's governed to a certain degree. So QuickSight allows you to create all of that and gives your users that rich interactivity. The performance is really fast because inside of QuickSight, we built our own calculation engine called Spice, that basically powers every time a user clicks on a filter or does a drill down, etc. Our Spice engine will returns the results for that without it ever having to go to your underlying data source, which provides a really fast end user experience with very little latency as they interact with the content, which helps them interact with it and makes them more likely to do so, while also saving you a lot of money on the overall infrastructure costs to your underlying data source, because all of those users are interacting with a dashboard, and our Spice engine is powering all the results instead of that being fed down to your underlying data source. Lastly, it's accessible on every device and allows you to directly refresh the data. So you create a dashboard once, put that in people's hands, and instead of giving them new files every day or a new report or a new email every day, they basically just come in and they'll see the data refreshed at whatever intervals are relevant for your use case. And then on the other side, as I mentioned before, QuickSight also facilitates that self-serve discovery for power users. So you can designate your the users that you want to have the ability to go into the QuickSight application and start from a blank canvas, upload an Excel spreadsheet or connect to a data source that they have access to, and then be able to build their own charts and their own tables and reports and visualizations inside of the application. Again, without that having to be a different application that they download and run on their desktop. And lastly, QuickSight as an AWS solution is kind of built from the ground up, enterprise ready. So it's a because you can just sign up for an account and get going, it's a great solution for small teams and small companies. But as an AWS solution, it really has enterprise-ready roots. So it's secure and compliant. As you can see, we have it's HIPAA compliant, SOC 2, PCI, etc. QuickSight is globally available in a number of AWS regions, and we're continuing to add more regions as we go forward in the product's life. And lastly, it's built-in redundancy, so there's very little concern that QuickSight will ever go down, and that your BI solution will never go down because it is an AWS solution. It's built in a highly redundant way across all of our different availability zones. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Jesse for a demo giving you a walkthrough of how QuickSight works.
Fantastic. Thank you, Quentin. So hi, everybody. I'm very excited to lead you through a live demonstration of QuickSight today. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what the end user experience of QuickSight looks like, but we'll also take a look at how you actually create data sets and create analyses, and then create dashboards from these analyses, and then be able to publish them and share them with either your internal users or also even with your customers and your partners and your external users as well. So as Quentin mentioned, we have a couple different roles in QuickSight. One is an author role where I can create new data sets and create my analyses and dashboards, and another which is called the reader, where it's more focused on just consuming dashboards that someone else has shared with me. Right now I'm logged into QuickSight as an author type of user. So I have the ability to create new data sets, new analyses and dashboards, and then share those out. So first what we're going to start with is just an example of what a dashboard could look like, just to get you a feel for what we're working towards here. So in this example, I have a number of drop-down menus here across the top. These could be filters, these could be what-if parameters, really lots of different ways where you can have these interact with the visualizations. In this case, mine are filters set to filter the whole dashboard in this case. These can work across different data sets even. So if you have some visuals that are maybe connected to a Redshift database and some that are maybe just from an Excel file, some to a SQL server, these filters can actually work across all those different data sets within the same dashboard. So a number of controls across the top, consider those a given. You can add as many of those as you'd like. I then have some KPIs here where I'm comparing year-over-year performance of my sales figures. In the middle here, I have a time trend. So in this time trend, whenever you use a date field in QuickSight, you have the ability to, or for your end user, excuse me, have the ability to drill down into into that time trend. So for instance, if I see a really big spike here in this particular week, I can choose to drill down to the days within that week. And I can see there was actually just one particular day that we had a big number of orders and not necessarily a big week overall. So you can drill down as far as you'd like through your date fields, but this type of drill down works in any type of visualization. So for instance, here, I've taken my customers and I've grouped them into industries. And then those customers also brought products from my fictional retail store here. So I have kind of a natural hierarchy in my data from industries to the customers to the products themselves. So what I can do is, as an end user again, just be able to select something that I'm interested in and say I want to drill down to the next level, which is in this case is the customer name. and then be able to select a particular customer and see what products that customer has purchased from me. So if you have any kind of hierarchical type of data or something you'd want to build a drill path into, we'll show you how we do this when we actually move to the authoring side, but very easy, all drag and drop. Similarly over here, same thing. I can do my same kind of hierarchical drill path, just pointing out really any type of visualization you can build this into. Towards the bottom here, I have a more traditional kind of way of looking at our data in a text table. So in this table, I can sort by any one of the metrics. I see I have my totals here on the bottom. I can choose how much data to display per page, and if I have more data than that, I can page to page 2 and 3, 4, etc. for however much data you'd like. As an end user, I can also download this data if I choose to. So if I want to export this out to a CSV, you can export up to 1 million rows of data, and then I can open this up in Excel if I choose to. So in that case, I exported data from my text table, but this works on all the visualizations. So even in my geographic visualization here, if I wanted to export that data to a CSV, works the same way. So any visual, anytime, you can pull the data out if you need to. So last couple of things just on the interactive side of things here. So we talked about filtering and drilling down and a little bit of exporting. The last kind of thing that you can do is you can launch other web pages. So this is called a URL action. So for instance, on this particular table here, I've got a couple options where I could go search this product on the web, or I could head to that customer's website. Another very common use case for this is to drill to another QuickSight dashboard. So maybe on this one I have some summary information, and then I have a separate dashboard which contains some more detailed information about those particular metrics. This is great for that kind of use case as well, where I want to drill from dashboard A to dashboard B and send some filters or some parameters as I do that drill down. So far we've just reviewed how QuickSight works like, what it looks like from the end user perspective. So more from the reader type of role. Again, just to get a feel for what it can look like and what some of the capabilities are for those readers. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch more to the authoring, or you can kind of consider this the analyst type of user persona, and show how these are created and how you create data sets, and eventually how we can share these out with other users. So I'm going to go back to my QuickSight homepage. So first thing to point out here is I have I can switch between my analyses and my dashboards. So think of an analysis as either an ad hoc analysis, and maybe you have some new questions about the data and you want to create a new set of reports to go chase down those new hunches. You'd start with an analysis for that. But even if you want to create a dashboard, you always start with an analysis first, and then if it's something more repeatable that you want to share with others, then you can choose to publish a dashboard from that analysis. But even before creating analysis, we need some data that we want to connect to. So the first step is always that let's go find some data to connect to. So I'm going to say that I want to begin a new analysis, and then QuickSight is going to ask me what type of data I want to connect to. So you have two options here. One would be I can use an existing data set and start to build my analysis from that, or I can choose to create a new data set. So the benefit of these existing data sets is you can think of this as building a nice piece of metadata that is very user-friendly, very user-friendly column names, maybe has some calculations and business logic built into these data sets as well. Maybe there's some complex joins behind it that you want to hide that complexity from any of the end users or from your analysts. So by starting with a pre-existing data set, I don't need to worry about all the tables that were needed to come join to build this data set. I just know that I want to use my orders or my social media data set, and I could click on one of these and say that I want to create an analysis from it. A couple other things to point out here. So notice that some of these have a little icon that says Spice, and some of them don't. So when I connect to data, I can either connect directly to that underlying data source, and then it's truly a real-time connection when you're building your reports off of that. Um, or I can import this data into Spice if I want to get guaranteed great performance with it. And it's also a good idea to import it to Spice if you plan to share this with large numbers of users. So Spice is really built for performance, but also for high concurrency numbers. So if you expect, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of users even, by importing into the Spice, we have ways where we can spin up replicas of this data very quickly. So if you ramp up from 10 users to 10,000, there's nothing for you to configure. We take care of all that behind the scenes. And once the data is in Spice, you can choose to put it on a refresh schedule. So this data set's about 3 gigabytes. It's a little over 5 million rows. And if I want to refresh this either every week or every day or even down to every hour if I'd like to, I can control what frequency this data set refreshes at. Excuse me. So last thing to point out here is that you can build additional security into these data sets in the form of row level security. So what row level security does is this customizes this data set per user such that when I use it, maybe I see data from certain countries, and then when you go to use this data set, you see data from different countries. And this will trickle through all the way to the dashboards themselves too. So you can create a single dashboard that when customer A logs in, they see their data, and when customer B logs in, they see different data. And there's no way that each customer or user would ever be able to see each other's data. So that's what this little restricted icon means. And we can forward some information to you on how to set up the row level security, but that you can find it in our help documents as well. So that's just a little bit on using the existing data sets. But what we'll do now is we'll show how to create one of these data sets completely from scratch. So I've chosen that I want to make a new data set here. And then I see all the different types of data sources that QuickSight's able to connect to. So everything from just uploading a simple Excel file or CSV flat file to connecting to other cloud applications like Salesforce or Adobe Analytics or Twitter or Jira. Many AWS sources such as Redshift and Athena and RDS, and also lots of non-AWS sources as well. So whether you're using hosted or on-premise versions of systems like Teradata or SQL Server or Postgres or MySQL, QuickSight's able to connect to those whether you're hosting them in the cloud or if you have them on-premise as well. So as an example today, I will use a Redshift database. So what it asked me for here is first just to give it a name. So I'll call this my sales data. It has the ability to auto-discover any AWS sources if you choose to configure it this way. So it actually found my demo cluster here. I can choose what database I want to connect to and essentially just provide my credentials here. When connecting to sources within AWS, you can connect, if your database has a public endpoint to it, you can connect to it using the public network. But you can also configure this such that it works with private connectivity. So if your Redshift database is in a private VPC, QuickSight can be configured to connect to data within private VPCs. And that also works to be able to connect it to on-premise data in a private manner where you're not sending any data over any kind of public network. So very, very secure connections to any data within AWS and on-premise. So the next thing I'm presented with is the list of schemas within that database. And then when I choose a schema, I see all the tables within that schema. So I can either select one of these and choose select, then I'm off to visualizing my data. I can enter some custom SQL if I had some SQL statement that I was using previously that I just like to reuse for my data set here. I have that option. And I also have an option where I can do some more preparation on the data if I'd like to. So this is an optional step if you wanted to do things like join tables together. Like for instance, maybe I wanted to join these two tables on a particular column, choose what type of join it needs to be. So you can recreate all of your joins here. I can add calculated fields, so whether these are numerical calculations or maybe string manipulation or date calculations, if statements, any kind of calculation that you typically do in Excel or another kind of BI tool, you should be able to do here as well. So by doing them at this stage, I'm building these calculations into the data model for this data set, so that if I share this data set with someone else, they will be able to leverage these exact same calculations. So nice to kind of be able to build them here so that they are reusable for whatever reports you wind up creating for this data set. Last couple things I would do here is you could do some simple things like rename columns if they're not so user friendly. Like maybe I want to change this field to just be called date. The data types I can change as well. So for instance, my date field in my demo data came in as a string or a text field, and I can tell QuickSight what the format of this date is, and it'll convert it into a true date field. And the last thing to point out here is here's where I choose whether I want to use a direct query or whether I want to import this data into Spice. So if I need truly real-time data, up to the second, then you can use a direct query. Or if you have really massive amounts of data, billions of rows of data, you can use the direct query. A lot of our customers use QuickSight with Athena. If you're using AWS kind of for a data lake strategy, QuickSight and Athena are a very popular combination to use together, and you can query massive data sets of billions of rows. Or I could import my data into Spice, as we mentioned before. So by doing this, I get guaranteed great performance with it. Concurrency is never an issue. And again, I can schedule that data to refresh down to the hourly level. So I'm going to say I want to import my data into Spice here. You can always come back and change this later on. So if you want to start with the direct connection and switch to Spice or vice versa, it's very flexible. You can always come back and change that. So I'm presented here with a little notification as it's importing the data of what the progress looks like. It'll let me know when that's finished as well. But while that's happening, on the left-hand side here, I see all of my different data fields from the set of tables I chose. So it's just in alphabetical order, and I have both my metrics and my categorical information and all my data information as well. So here it just told me that my import is complete, so we're ready to go. So easiest way to build visuals in QuickSight is you can just leave it on this autograph visual type, and I can just start to select fields that I'm interested in, and QuickSight will build an appropriate visualization for me depending on what type of fields that I chose. So here I just clicked on one number, so I get a KPI value here, which I can format to look however I like. If I want to choose add another visual here, I'm going to choose that same number, but this time I say that I want to break this up over time. So I want to choose my date field at this point. So notice while on autograph, when I chose the date field, it actually changed the visualization type. So now I'm looking at this in more of a line graph or time trend type of fashion. So I can expand the amount of data I'm looking at here. You can see it's at a pretty granular level at the moment. I'm all the way down at the day level. I could choose to roll it up maybe to a monthly level. I can choose to slice this by some other category in my data as well. So for instance, I have customer segments that I'd like to slice this by. So now I can see that not only trended on a monthly granularity, but I also see my different customer segments plotted there. So you can continue to add visuals and choose how you lay these out and resize them and move them wherever you'd like. And we're kind of designing our dashboard as we go along here. So we'll do one example here of how do you build those drill downs that we were using when we were taking a look at this from the end user perspective, when we were looking at that pre-made dashboard. So for instance, if I want to start with my sales by industry, but I want to let those users be able to drill from the industry to the customers in those industries down to the actual products, here's how you do that. So the next field I want to add into my hierarchy, when I drag it up here to my y-axis, if I drag it on top of the other field, it will replace that. It'll replace that field. But if I drag it just below it, it's telling me that I can add a drill down layer for this. And I'm going to do the same with my products. So now I've got a few different fields up here. So when I go to share this now with other users, when they click on any of these bars, they'll have this option here where they can drill down to whatever that next level is. And if they were to pick another, in this case, a customer, they can now drill down to the products that that customer's purchased. So as you can see, really easy to build those drill downs in, drag and drop, and just choose what order you want them to, the drill path to work. So maybe one final example here for our dashboard where we build more of a traditional text table kind of visualization. So you can build both pivot tables and just a regular type of table here. So I'm going to tell QuickSight specifically that I want to build a table. And I'm going to just choose all the data fields that I'm interested in displaying in this. So I can go as granular as I'd like. I'll say at this level I want to go and see every single order. I want to know what date that order happened on. I'd like to know what customer it was and what product did they buy. I'll put some numbers in here associated with the transactions, maybe the city. So add as many fields as you'd like to. You can control and resize the columns. You can do things like add totals to the table and control whether those get shown on the top or the bottom. You can rename all the column headers if you want to make those a little more user-friendly as well. But nonetheless, I've built my table here. Notice that I can choose how much data gets displayed per page. So right now I have about 500 records per page, and I can page to 2, 3, 4, however many pages I need to show all the information. So I'll go ahead and rename that to be order details. And we see our dashboard starting to shape up here. So let's just resize this guy and maybe move that one on top of the table. All right. So we've got a set of visualizations and we've got some drill downs built into them. Maybe the last step before I choose to go share this out with some other users would be to add some filters and some parameters for them to play around with. So parameters is a relatively new feature that was added to QuickSight. So within the last 2 months or so, lots of great user reasons for using parameters. You can use them to filter across different data sets. You can use them for what-if analysis and be able to, for instance, to give a user a growth rate slider and see how that affects their visualization. They can be used to allow a user to change what field is being used in a particular visualization. So for instance, maybe change this from showing sales to profit to quantity, or be able to change what's being used on the color in a line chart, for instance. Lots of different ways to use parameters. In this example, I'll use a way of doing it as a filter. So I'll say I want to make a parameter called segment. I'm going to make a control for this parameter. I can choose what that should look like. So it can be either a text value input, or here I'm going to say that I want to do a drop down where I link it to a particular field in my data. So this is saying what should the choices be in that drop down menu. So I'm saying the choices should be should come from this field in my data called segment. So now this I have this control here that I can use as a filter. I can use it in calculated fields. A lot of different ways I could use this parameter. So for instance, if I wanted to use it in a filter, I can go create a filter on that same field and say I want to use my parameter that I just created as the filter here. So now as I go to change to different values, notice I look at just one customer segment here, and all the other visuals are updating here as well. All right, so we've got a dashboard, we've got some interactivity built in with some drill downs and some filters. Now is when I'm ready to go share this with some other users. So at this point, I would come to the share icon and say I want to publish this dashboard. The other option here, share analysis, what this would do is if maybe you have a couple different analysts that want to collaborate on the same analysis before we create a dashboard. Maybe we both want to work on this and make some tweaks and make some changes before we publish it. When if I share this with another user, we'll be able to collaborate on this. But I'm going to choose to publish this as a dashboard. So I'll give it a name. I can choose to replace an existing dashboard if I was just making a change to something that I'd already pre-published. And then at this point is when I can share that with other users. So these, if I hook QuickSight up with Active Directory, I can use my Active Directory usernames here, and I can also use my Active Directory groups. So for instance, you might have groups for finance and a different group for HR and a different group for marketing. I could choose which AD group should have access to this dashboard. Or if I'm using QuickSight in a single sign-on scenario with maybe you have some custom authentication within your web app and you want to use QuickSight, you want to send the users to QuickSight but not have them see another logon screen, we can integrate QuickSight from a single sign-on perspective with really any identity provider that you have. And then those users, again, I can share that with them here. If it's appropriate, I can say that I want to share this with all the users in my account. So I checked this box and it gave me a little message saying that all readers in this account will be able to have access to this dashboard. So in this case, I'll consider this as metrics I want everyone in my company to see, and I'll say I want to share it with all the users. All right, so that kind of brings us full circle. So now we're looking at that same thing we just built, but in the form of a dashboard. So that control that we added still works here as a filter. Those drill downs that we built still work here, where I can drill down through my levels. Same thing in my time trend. And here again, I can sort or export or do whatever I'd like with my text table here as well. All right, so that kind of gives us a little bit of a feel for both kind of personas. How do I create things in QuickSight and create the data sets and the analyses and the dashboards? And then from more the consuming perspective, how do I interact with those dashboards and what are the types of drill downs and filters that I can use? So maybe the last thing that we'll do just before we kick it back to Quentin to finish up with some slides would be to show how you can add users into QuickSight. So just as an example, here I went to my Manage QuickSight account, and here I'm on Manage Users, and I can choose to invite a new user. So in this scenario, I'm just using the user pool management that's built into QuickSight. So in its simplest form, I can just invite users to my QuickSight account via their email address. So if I add my email address here, I can choose what type of role they should be. So should that user be an admin or an author or a reader? I can choose whether they exist in IAM or not if I want to use that for single sign-on, but totally not necessary. I could just create them here directly in QuickSight. And oh, it's just telling me that I already have that user added, which is okay. Again, I'll say that I want that user to be a reader. So they'll get an email saying that they've been granted access to this account. And then if I go to share some dashboards with them, they'll again get emails saying that, that some dashboards have been shared with them. But when those readers then go and log into QuickSight, they will only see the dashboards. They won't see these buttons here. And they'll only see dashboards that they have access to. So everyone's homepage theoretically would be kind of customized just to show them the dashboards that they have access to. And then remember that you can build row level security into these such that when I go to view this dashboard, maybe I see data from different customers or different countries than when you go log into the data and see this exact same dashboard. So remember, you can build the permissions all the way down to that level per user. Within the same dashboard, we see different data. All right, so I think that completes the demo portion for today. I'm going to kick it back over to Quentin, and he's going to wrap up with a couple more slides, and then we will take questions towards the end. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jesse. Great. So just to finish off some of the things that Jesse covered in his demo. So we talk about how you can use QuickSight to really distribute reports and dashboards across your organization, regardless of whether you're, again, a smaller company or a small team, or you're really talking about publishing dashboard reports out to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of users, where QuickSight, again, that intrinsic scalability and managed components of QuickSight really can provide a large cost savings on management and infrastructure and everything else. QuickSight also allows you has a good set of administrative features inside of the application to help you run your deployment for across all your different users. One of the things that you can do inside of QuickSight is a lot of times if you want to give some users the ability to do their own self-serve data discovery, but you want to have some control over the data that they actually can do that on. In QuickSight, when you create those data sets, you can share those data sets with different users, and you can give them access to those as a user, meaning they can't modify it, they can't tweak it, they can't corrupt the underlying data set, but they basically have the ability to create their own charts and analyses off of those. So you can create governed data sets and then share those out to whatever QuickSight users should have access to that, and then they can create their own analysis and dashboards, but they can't modify the data, and it's still beholden to when you refresh it. It refreshes all of their content, so they're always working on the latest data. So it's got a really nice set of data governance features built in for managing, particularly that self-serve user audience. We talked about QuickSight's ability to distribute out these dashboards to large audiences. And so what we'd like to highlight is the difference between, say, sending out an Excel sheet or a PDF where, let's say it's a weekly report where every Tuesday we're emailing out and many companies still do this very manual report distribution process where every Tuesday we send out a new file or we post it in SharePoint or in some repository, and then users go download it from there. They're looking at a static spreadsheet or PDF. You're kind of responsible for managing which version of the document that they're looking at. Is this last week's or this week's or 2 weeks ago? And also there's some security concerns there where if that file now exists on my computer, it can be emailed, it can go outside of the company. So there's a pretty significant security gap there. But with QuickSight, again, as a hosted solution, when you share those dashboards out, as Jesse showed you, what users get is a link, and they click on that link, and it brings them to the active live dashboard inside of the QuickSight application, which allows them to do that interactive filtering and drilling and actually engage with the data. It also allows you to make sure that that data is up to date. So they're looking at the data that's been refreshed. Only they can access it because they're gated by a username and password, so that can't be shared or emailed out or lost. So it's a holistic solution for distributing data out to your users. QuickSight has a lot of benefits above a lot of traditional solutions for doing that. And then, as Jesse mentioned, the Enterprise Edition of QuickSight is integrated with Active Directory, so you can have dynamic user management via Active Directory, single sign-on, etc., and also allows you to share with different groups of users, give different groups different permissions. So these guys, we give them the ability to create their own analyses, etc. This group is a sales group, so they're just readers and they can only consume published content. So that's a really nice integration for managing larger scale deployments. And as Jesse mentioned, we also support single sign-on through third-party SSO providers and IAM. So QuickSight's been out in the market for about 19 months, and in that time, again, as a SaaS application, we constantly are iterating on QuickSight and adding new functionality and features. So since launch, we've added over 68 features, which is almost a feature a week. And again, there's no software to update, no servers to update, no migrations, to different versions, etc. As we add new features, they just show up inside of the application, and we let you know that new feature is available, and you can start using it the day that it's released. And then lastly, we're going to talk about pricing. So QuickSight has a very unique pricing model for the BI industry. Again, most solutions charge a user license, whether that's a one-time license or an ongoing subscription, that basically gives them access to the system, regardless of what they're doing and regardless of how frequently they're accessing content. But in reality, especially with the variety of different types of users for data, a lot of times, especially in that consumption audience, users that just consume publish reports and dashboards, there's a lot of variety in how active they are. So some users may only look at one report a month. Some users may look at 10 different reports in the context of a day. Some users may look at 2 reports a week. So there's a lot of variety, and so it's not very cost effective to basically have to pay for a flat license fee for all those users, regardless of whether they're using the solution or not, or how active they are on it. So what we announced about a month and a half ago was an industry first concept, basically bringing pay per session pricing into BI, where for readers, as Jesse referred to them, users that consume content, you only pay for them when they actually use the QuickSight application, when they log into a dashboard. So the way that works is when a user logs into a report or a dashboard, we basically we bill them 30 cents, and that gives that user 30 minutes to do whatever they want inside of QuickSight, spend as much time with that dashboard, and if they continue to stay in the application and stay active in the application, then we continue to bill them 30 cents for every 30-minute session. If they stop being active in the application, if they leave the desk or they go to a different browser and they go to an email and go off on their day, we don't charge them even if they leave the browser open. So they're really only paying for when they're active in the application. And the way we charge that is 30 cents for a 30-minute session inside of the QuickSight application. Now, what we also added is a monthly cap. So what that means is after a user has clocked $5 worth of sessions during the course of a singular month, they're no longer billed, meaning they essentially have unlimited usage of QuickSight after they paid $5. So the most you'll ever pay for a data consumer, for a person who accesses and reads and interacts with dashboards and reports, the most you'll ever pay for them, regardless of how active they are, is $5 a month. However, if they only access that report once a month, it's a monthly reporting use case, you'll only pay 30 cents for that user. So it gives you basically a dynamic way to optimize how much money you're spending on the solution based on what your users are actually doing inside of the application. So you're not stuck paying a fixed high licensing cost for all of your users, regardless of whether they're using the application or not. And again, that's just billed on a per session basis, so 30 cents for 30 minutes, up to a maximum of $5. And then they have unlimited usage for the rest of that month. So QuickSight comes in 2 editions. The Enterprise Edition, which is really designed for deploying and publishing data across your organization, whether that's a small company or again, a large organization doing tens of thousands of users. And the way that we price that is for authors and self-serve data discovery users, the people that are going to be in the application using all the functionality that you're creating, connecting to data, etc., and administering the solution. That's a fixed $18 a month subscription. And then for readers, we just talked about we have the pay per session pricing. So when you bring your users in, you designate them as readers, as Jesse shows you in the admin panel, and then we will only bill you when those readers are active in the solution. So when you think about that, you could onboard 5,000 users onto QuickSight was only paying a couple $100 to get up and running, or actually nothing to get up and running for that first month, and then you'd only be paying fixed licenses for the authors and the people that are creating content, and everyone else, we're not billing for them until they use the solution. So you could have a BI solution fully managed in the cloud, no infrastructure, no maintenance costs or anything else, have that deployed to 5,000 users in a matter of hours, really, without paying a cent, which is it's pretty revolutionary and really allows you to think about how you can distribute data and what data could be valuable to every single user inside of your organization. So just to highlight how this kind of breaks down, we have some pricing scenarios. So if you look at the top, let's say it's a smaller organization of maybe 60 people, and say 50 of those users are readers. So when you look at the breakdown of how that how that comes out. So depending on the different types of, let's say we have 10 users that use the solution 2 times a day, 20 users that use it twice a week, and 20 users that use it twice a month. You can see the different user charges that you're actually paying for those different user groups per month. So for those users, for those 20 users that are only using the solution twice a month, you're only paying 60 cents a month for them, which is pretty a striking difference between most other solutions in terms of the fixed costs that you have going on a monthly basis. So for that entire deployment of 50 users, all of them using the solution as much as is relevant to them, you would only be paying $110 a month for 50 users. And if you look at that at scale, in the context of say 5,000 users, again with a variety of different user activity buckets, you could have a BI solution for 5,000 users for $7,300 a month. So just for comparison, if you look at that compared to some other analytics and BI solutions, the savings is pretty dramatic when you're doing a lot of report and dashboard distribution versus self-serve data discovery and enablement of power users. And so again, our goal with this is to really help you leverage the intrinsic scalability, the serverless aspects of QuickSight, where it is, it's a fully managed solution, and now you can connect all of your users across your organization so that they can receive secured, interactive, up-to-date information that's relevant to them in their jobs, and give them, that help them have better insights into the decisions that they're making for virtually no cost upfront, and then very very small cost depending on their usage. In addition to the Enterprise Edition, we also have a standard edition of QuickSight, and this is really more oriented around small teams. There is no reader concept in the standard edition. It's really just a singular user for people to create their own content, do the self-serve data discovery, and that we charge $9 a user a month. That doesn't have things like Active Directory integration and things that are more oriented towards managing larger scale reader audiences and for distributing and reports and dashboards. The standard edition is really oriented around like small teams of data analysts and power users to be able to have all that functionality, but at a lower cost, because you don't need all of the large scale administrative and management features. So last, we'll like to end with a customer story. So Rio Tinto is one of the largest mining companies in the world, is now utilizing QuickSight to distribute a set of key safety metrics to every single mine site that they have across the world. So we're really talking about thousands of site managers that are now getting that information in an interactive dashboard with connected, refreshed, and secure data through QuickSight out in the sites, out in the mines. And being able to do that without having to run a massive infrastructure that's calibrated against how many users are going to be active at different points of the day, and etc. It's all just taken care of for them, and they're only paying for those users when they access and log into those dashboards, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly. So just a good customer story there. So with that, we'll turn it over to Q&A. So Jess, if you want to come back, and we'll try to answer some of the questions that we saw pop up in the window.